Hello, lovely humans. It's so lovely to see you here today. I'm laughing at Helen's message in the chat, which says, "Hey, from Nottingham, just got off the phone with Sky TV and now need this to calm down." But which is just fabulous. So happy to provide that service for you there, Helen. And thank you, everyone already who has popped a message in the chat. It's so lovely to see you here today. If you haven't already, do fire up that chat feature so everyone can know that you're here. And do say hello. Let us know where you're watching in from. I can see bunches and bunches of messages coming in already. Quite a few of them coming into hosts and panelists only. So there's some instructions on your screen right now that if you're one of those people that has that chat feature, switch to hosts and panelists, then please do change that to everyone by ticking the little toggle in your chat feature so everyone can see your messages. Just like Daria has in Poland, Maggie has in London, Sam has in Ipswich. We've got folks in York, Norwich, Newcastle, Sheffield. I've seen people in Croatia, Dublin, Edinburgh. It goes on. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Today we have the fabulous Ash Stern, who's a new friend who was actually introduced by a previous TMM speaker, Heather Murray, who delivered, I think, the most popular talk of 2025, Heather did. And I've had one conversation with Ash, and in that one conversation, she just absolutely blew my socks off with just how kind and present and human Ash is to speak about the topic of AI, which is often steeped in mystery and sort of a lot of bluster. So thrilled to bits to have Ash with us today to speak all about AI agents, which is something which I think is shrouded in another level of mystery. And so to be able to explore this today is fabulous for the marketing meetup. Before we get started, I just want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. So this week's featured sponsor is a company called Frontify, who we've been working with for maybe the last 18 months or so. Now, Frontify are fabulous because what they do is bring all of your digital assets into a single place and make it super coherent for your team to be able to roll out your assets. And that's important when it comes to brand, because I think we all know the feeling of when Dave from accounts is using the wrong logo and you got to go and have that awkward conversation. Frontify help you with that. And right now they've got a fabulous resource which enable you to scale out your assets from a single place into global campaigns, something which I know that a lot of folks watching in will feel the headache of. So do take the time to check out Frontify. Lovely people and a useful service. A big thank you also to Storyblock, Cambridge Marketing College, Planable, Redgate and ScoreApp. We'll speak about each of these sponsors in greater depth over the weeks as we go through the rest of our brand season. Now's the time to also say a big thank you to everyone who's been saying hello. So hello to Julie, Daniel, Tom, Daniel, Hannah, Janice, Victoria, Chelsea, Kathy Ann, Gail, Lauren, Daria, so many more. Is what a pleasure it is. With all that said, that's my introduction done. So Ash, thank you for showing up as you do. Thank you for being here. And it's over to you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Joe, and thanks everyone for turning up today. So what I'm going to do is just share my screen. Um, okay, and just we're going to get straight into it.
Canva's hard for this, so like you're doing
It's
miracle.
yeah, it's the first time I've actually used it and just realized I'm not on the right slide. There we go. Yeah, it's the first time I've used it to present anything. So let's hope it all goes all right.
I think the slides look
Okay.
fabulous. Over to enjoy, Ash.
Thank you. Thanks. All right. So my presentation today, and really what my aim and goal is to do for you guys, is to really break down what agents or AI agents are. So this is really going to be an introduction into what they are, very key and specific things you need to know in order to either build your own agents or whether you're going to hire someone and train someone in-house. So it's really just going to bring it down to what are the fundamentals of an AI agent. Okay. Right. So the just an overview. I'm just going to go over who I am, who am I, my background, a little bit about me. What are agents? Uh, do you really need AI agents? So we're going to be looking at some existing tools as well, such as Make and Zapier, which you will need just a little bit of an introduction into these tools just to understand, I guess, the bigger picture of AI agents as well. We will then look at other agent building platforms, which is Relevance AI and NAN. They are currently two of the biggest platforms out there and most popular. Then we'll look at when to use what. So when is it going from a simple automation to then jumping into something like an AI agent? And then, of course, I have to admit, my favorite is reality checking and just setting some expectations there for you guys, and what it really does take to build agents, and everything that kind of goes into that just based off my own personal experience, and my own journey. So, who am I? Yeah, you're probably wondering, who am I? So I come from a very, very non-technical background. Actually, I have been a creative my entire life. So writing was something I'd been doing since I was a kid. I was very artistic, runs in my dad's side of the family, definitely not my mom's. So it's writing for me has always been, I guess, a bit of a gift. It wasn't until I really started traveling quite a bit and then became a bit of an expat, living in Italy, and traveling back and forth quite often between Italy and Australia. So as transitioning away from, I was actually previously a disability support worker to now working online, it made sense to really start upskilling in terms of copywriting, digital marketing, all of those things, social media management. And so in 2 years, I did that, and I managed to land my first online job, which was writing Google ad copy for new clients. So I really went into this copywriting job. The agency was a wonderful, wonderful agency to be working for. They were also very open-minded to us using AI. Slowly, my role did develop and transition more into then social media management and writing blogs, as well as writing ad copy for both Facebook and Google. So it really, yeah, it was a lot. So I was doing multiple things at once. I think the biggest change for me when I actually started using a lot of AI was, especially ChatGPT, was when our social media strategy changed to a very, very aggressive repurposing content strategy, which I wasn't completely, I did not agree with, because I think came across as too spammy, but it gave me the opportunity then to leverage something like ChatGPT. Now, originally, I had not used ChatGPT. I was afraid of it, as I think a lot of people were when it was released, but it really gave me the opportunity to leverage and streamline my workflow. So just to give you a bit of a picture, I was producing about 120 pieces of content spread over 6 platforms, both video content and written content. So obviously, ChatGPT was a wonderful gift, and then it just all took off from there. So I was introduced to AI agents about 13 months ago, and ever since then, I've been obsessed. One of the co-founders of Relevance AI was introduced into a community, and that was when I was just hooked. He gave a demonstration of what they've built and their platform, and yeah, it was just the rest is history. So here I am, just over 13 months later. I was self-taught, so I had to teach myself how to build agents specifically with Relevance AI, simply because the documentation was very poor. Coming from a non-technical background as well was really difficult. The learning curve, without any kind of resources, it was a lot of trial and error. But they do say that sometimes failing actually helps you, develop the skills quicker and better. And that seems to have happened and worked with me, thank goodness. So I've done a lot of screaming and kicking around with the computer. Didn't break anything, but I finally managed to pretty much nail it. And so that's where I am now. Um, all right, so we're going to get now into what are agents. So agents, I love this whole analogy that agents are like digital employees. When you think about, when you go hiring a new employee into your marketing department, there's the hiring process. You have to go out, you have to find them, do their skills match your job description? So essentially an AI agent is like that. It's a digital employee that you're looking to hire, but instead of going through a hiring process, you're going through a building process. So you're actually creating these digital employees for your department to assist other employees when it comes to anything like marketing related, especially content production is quite, content stuff is really quite good with AI agents. Um, what defines an AI agent? They can execute tasks on their own. They have the ability to complex problem solve. They can interact with various external tools, and they can work independently towards goals without constant human input. So that's where the whole autonomy comes into it, which is just one of those bigger defining things of AI agents. So this is just them in a nutshell. You've got to think of them as upgrading from an AI that just answers questions like ChatGPT, where it's very much a back and forth exchange between you and ChatGPT, to one that can actually take action and get things done for you without constant supervision. So now we're going to try and shift more into what are the differences between an AI agent, custom GPT, which you might or might not have heard of, and a traditional chatbot. So if you haven't heard of a custom GPT, it is almost like it's ChatGPT essentially. That's the model it's running off, but you're allowed to upload extra data and specific instructions so that's able to perform better in a particular area. So it's trained on targeted content, so it understands the nuances of a specific topic, industry, or task, and it follows defined guidelines on style and tone. So this is where you're going to upload things like, various PDF files, CSV files that contain brand guidelines, extra data points about your, ICP or your client information, for example. And then so that output that you get from your custom GPT is really going to be tailored based on that, I guess, knowledge that you've uploaded into it. So that's what a custom GPT is. Now, they do have access to external things, so you can do like a Google, like a search, a web search, and other things like that, but it's quite limited in how many external tools it can actually leverage. And that's where AI agents really excel in that area, where you can actually implement a lot of tools within your AI agent. So you can do a Google search, you can do all sorts of stuff with external apps as well, like Zendesk, for example. Um, Now moving into a traditional chatbot, and I'm sure all of you, if you've done any kind of shopping online, I'm sure you would have seen the box, that annoying box that sometimes I can't find the X for some reason, that pops up in the corner. That's essentially a chatbot. Okay, so it has a lot of, it will might give you some. Do you have any questions for me? And give you some suggestions of questions. That is like a traditional chatbot that you will most often see on websites where you're buying things. Oh, not necessarily buying things, but that's the most, I guess, common place where you might see them. All right, so this is an analogy, and like I mentioned, I am an expat and I do love traveling. So this is kind of just an analogy that I obviously had ChatGPT help me out with as well. So when you look at an AI agent, it's like a tour guide. Okay, so it's knowledgeable. Doesn't only just show you around, but it also adapts to your preferences. It will answer unexpected questions. It makes decisions on the fly, changing the route due to weather, or for example, if someone's unwell and they need medical assistance. They can even book tickets, arrange transportation, or solve problems that arise during the trip. So the key traits that they're autonomous, they're proactive, and they're capable of handling complex multi-step tasks. All right, now moving on to our custom GPT. A custom GPT based system is like a detailed travel book tailored to your destination, provides rich information and insights about places to visit, but it won't act on your behalf. So don't expect it to go booking a plane ticket for you because it won't do that. You have to do that yourself. So the key traits is that it's context aware and informative, but it lacks autonomy and it lacks action taking abilities. Our next one is an information stand or an information kiosk. Okay, and this is a traditional chatbot. I actually use Midjourney. I haven't used it in ages to generate these graphics, and I think this one is absolutely so cute. Um, so traditional chatbot is like a fixed information kiosk at a tourist spot. It will provide answers to common questions, but only within a programmed scope. If you ask anything outside of the questions it's got in its, I guess, brain or knowledge, it's not going to be able to help you. And that's when you're going to get the annoying message of, I'm sorry, I can't answer that for you. I will pass you on to a human, right? And that's generally how a chatbot will work. The key traits is that they're rule-based and they're very limited in scope. So you guys are going to get access to this presentation. So I won't go into detail, but this is just kind of a bit of a comparison here between an AI agent, traditional chatbot, and a custom GPT. So you've got all of these things on the left, like purpose, the task complexity, and then just some very, very brief examples at the bottom there. I guess one thing to highlight here is the autonomy level. So an AI agent is quite high. It can work independently towards goals. Traditional chatbot is low. It requires human input for each step. And then our custom GPT is kind of in the medium. It works within defined parameters, but needs user guidance. Okay, so that's a custom GPT. A lot of people will get confused with that actually being an agent, and it's not, simply because it really does require a lot from you still. So you still have to give it prompts, you still have to give it instructions. Yes, it has all that extra information, which is great, which means the output is going to be a lot more tailored to how you want it. But there is still that constant back and forth exchange between you and the custom GPT. So the big question is, do you really need them? This is something where people will sometimes get a little bit stuck. They're not entirely sure if they're overcomplicating it, if what they already have is enough, and if it gets the job done. And so I guess the recommendation I would make is try not to overcomplicate a workflow that you've got if it's already working. So I recently had a call with someone who she just wanted to figure out, is AI agents the way to go for her? It turns out she had about 15 custom GPTs already set up and running. Each have their specific tasks uploaded with the specific information. And that was it. That was enough for her. She didn't need to transition into AI agents because her custom GPTs, yes, it was a lot, but they were fine. And she didn't want to then make that further investment of time and money to be doing agents or building her own AI agents when the custom GPTs were doing beautifully well. So that just is a question to really think about when you come across AI agents, because, and as you'll see, I won't get ahead of myself, but you'll see that there's a lot more to it than a lot of people think. All right, so to kind of understand AI agents, we need to briefly go over two tools, which are Make and Zapier. Zapier is a very well known, they both do the same thing. They're essentially just create automations. That's all they are. You set them up, they have triggers. Right, so here is actually a good way to put it. So it uses a list-based interface, which consists of triggers, events that start a workflow, and actions, which are tasks performed as a result. It's very linear. So you have, it starts and it ends. It gets from A to B, and that's it. Okay, so Zapier has about 7,000 app integrations. It's great for users who prioritize ease of setup over advanced customization. Make is one that is very popular. I see a lot of people using it. I personally have used Make. I've never used Zapier, but Make for very, very basic and light things. Like I'm talking super simple automations where I've seen people build out very complex things, and it scares me. If I'm really honest, it does scare me with how complex somebody can build it. But for the sake of this, it's just it allows you to build more complex workflows. It provides a visual flowchart style interface, but Make is actually it's more flexible and it's lower pricing. So the thing to get out of here is that automations. Um, Automations make up your AI agents. So this is the reason why I need to introduce these two tools that perhaps you have heard of before, because they essentially go into automations which make up a big part of your AI agents. All right, these are just some of the workflows. But as you can see here, the difference here with these, now, not to overwhelm you, ignore this one because that one's freaky. But it starts from here, it ends here, it ends there, and it ends there. You've got all these things like this, things like this, and this. All right, they are conditions, they're rules, they're defined rules and parameters that somebody who's built this automation has set up so that the automation works and it functions. But again, it's very rigid, it's very structured. There's no flexibility in there. There's no autonomy. So it's not able to just, if it fails, it fails. If it works, it works. And that's it. So it gets from A to B and then you're done. All right. So now we're going to introduce some of the AI agent building platforms, just to give you an idea of what they're capable of. So Relevance AI, in a nutshell, is a platform that specializes in making your workflows, so your automations, smarter by adding decision making through AI. Instead of just following a set of predefined steps, right? These are predefined steps, essentially. Okay, it can take action based on context, understanding data, and the input. For example, Relevance AI could scan thousands of product reviews and social mentions, identifying recurring themes. All right, using natural language processing, generates data-backed content ideas such as blog posts, addressing common concerns, or Instagram reels, highlighting popular product features. Essentially, it does more thinking and decision making in your automations. Okay, that's really, when you get down to the core of it, that's essentially what it does, and what these AI agents with Relevance AI do. Okay, this is just an example of what you might see within Relevance AI. So it really does go into the definition of, you've got a content production manager up here, right? And then you've got another three, I guess, what we'd call sub agents. So other employees of your digital agency, right? So we've got our content organizer, we've got Lincoln. That's actually quite smart with how I name that, which, if you've guessed, is for LinkedIn. And then we've got our guide writer as well. So as you can see, it's delegating the tasks to the sub agents, right? And then in that, you've got conversations happening. So information is being passed from one agent to another agent. The task is done. The output or the answer and results from that task is then being passed on to our LinkedIn agent, and then so on and so forth until then everything's done. And then it comes back up, and our content production manager here is going to provide an update for the user, which is going to be me or it's going to be somebody else, with the content that's been generated. So the key features of Relevance AI, it's intelligent decision making. It doesn't just pass data from point A to point B like the Make automations, which I showed you just before, but it can interpret, classify, and decide the next best action. AI agents, you can set up agent-like workflows that make branching decisions automatically depending on context. Context awareness, it can adapt when the situation changes. So if a user's message is negative in tone or indicates urgency, this is really fantastic. And I've seen this happen with what other people have built, where then an agent has been set up to handle inbound, so emails that are coming. And they've actually opened up an entire email thread that's happened between their agent and a potential lead. And this lead has just gone back and forth between this agent. And the agent did make it aware to the person as well that they are an AI agent. This isn't, a human. But it was just so interesting to see this back and forth exchange between a real person and the AI agent via email. It was incredible. Um, Natural language processing and sentiment analysis. So it can read text, okay, so like I mentioned, emails or chat messages, and figure out sentiment and tag them accordingly. It also has the ability to get human in the loop. So for complex or sensitive issues, you can set it up to involve a human for final approval. Now, this is really great for when you have things like content as well, since obviously I'm coming from a content marketing background. There always needs to be a human in the loop involved. So that for the reviewing and editing process of content, nothing's going to be straight away scheduled via an AI agent. It's always going to have that reviewing process involved. Okay, and the scalability, if you're dealing with massive data sets or complex tasks, Relevance AI can scale to handle it. All right, so N8N. All I have to say about N8N, and I will go through with this, it's a lot more technical than Relevance AI. It's a lot more advanced. It's highly customizable. You kind of think of it as a power user version of Make. It offers a similar drag and drop experience, but it gives you a far deeper control over how your automations run. And the biggest defining thing with N8N is that it gives you the freedom to self-host. So this just allows you to take the data, oh, sorry, to take the product itself and I guess the code, and it allows you it's open source. So it's a technical way of just going, you can go under the hood. Your technical team can really look at how it's built and they can change it. So that's a massive defining difference between also N8N and Relevance AI, which Relevance AI doesn't offer this. But it's great for big businesses that have stricter security or compliance requirements. So that's a huge bonus of N8N, but also the level of complexity as well. But it is more technical. And it freaks me out because I also tried to use N8N and I'm just starting to learn it. And it's if you're a non-technical person like me, it's definitely a little bit freaky to look at. So this is something that somebody has done, an automation with N8N. And as you can see, it's actually quite similar to Make. So it's very much, you've got your little modules here, and then you've got the branching connectors to each module. You could call them nodes as well. And that's essentially what it would look like. Yeah. So the key features, it's powerful branching and merging. It's great complex branching workflows that handle multiple paths at once. Like Make, N8N integrates with a lot of apps. So it has currently a lot more app integrations than Relevance AI does. It's community driven, which I think is actually quite brilliant. Because it's open source, it means there is a large community of developers that are creating new integrations with N8N, which is great because it's just always growing and there's always things being built with N8N. That just adds that extra level of advanced complexity and flexibility, I guess, with it as well. So it's advanced AI agent. You can build sophisticated AI agents with full control over implementation and integration. Open source. You can run N8N on your own servers for full control, compliance, and security. And custom code, yes, you both with Relevance AI and N8N, you have the ability to also add in code, but we don't need that because these are low/no code platforms. So you do have the ability to add code in there, but you can also accomplish a lot without any coding, nothing, none whatsoever, pretty much. So, but it's just good to know that you've got that there, especially if you've got a technical person who wants to add something that is currently not offered within the platform, and they can do it with code instead. So when to use what? So how do you know when to use Make, Relevance AI, or N8N? So here's a quick guide. So choose Make when you need an automation tool that's easy for anyone to use. So the documentation that Make provides is really great. They have their own academy. If you need a simple automation setup, Make is great for that. If your tasks follow the same steps every time, Okay, so like I was saying, it's quite rigid. You've got rules set in there. So as long as the workflow is, or the task, sorry, is the same thing every single time, then it's great. If you're connecting to a bunch of apps in a very straightforward way, if you need something affordable and you just want something to get something simple up and running fast. When to use Relevance AI. If your task needs some decision-making power, your workflows might change based on the situation. You need a human to review things. You need more flexibility in how things are handled. You're serious about leveraging AI beyond simple triggers and actions, which is make something like make. N8N, you need a more robust production ready solution. You want to consolidate your automation and AI agent implementation in one platform. You're dealing with high volume tasks that need to run reliably and advanced error handling. You want the flexibility to self host for better security control and compliance reasons, which is one of the top features of N8N, in my opinion. If you have a technical team that's comfortable with working with a bit more complexity, if you are building things your own, like you're doing that on your own, I would actually highly recommend starting off with Relevance AI. As you saw between the difference in, let me just go back, in between this, how it's set up within N8N and how it's set up within Relevance AI, the interface, the user experience is very, very different between each platform. Relevance AI has been built to be easily navigated and I guess a lot more user friendly in comparison to N8N. Yeah, it really does depend on what you want and what you want to get out of your agents and how much learning you're willing to actually do as well. All right, so this is just another table, a comparison here between some workflow types. So let's look at the marketing automation. So when you use Make, so automatically add webinar attendees to a MailChimp list, send them a follow-up email with resources. And so the agent is create personalized marketing campaigns, adjust messaging based on user behavior, and predict engagement rates. Let's check out the content creation. Automate the publishing of pre-written blog posts to WordPress and share them on social media. Researching trending topics, write blog posts using AI, format them for WordPress, and schedule on social media. There's also a really good add tier to this one here as well, is that obviously you've got the ability to, for the human who's reviewing the process, to be able to send a message to your AI agent, say, look, this is actually not what I want. Can you go back and make this and this and this edit? So it's going to take the user's comments into consideration and it's going to go ahead and it's going to edit the post for you or the content for you. So, my personal and professional opinion as a non-techie on AI agents and what platform to use. So, I'm just going to give you a general. If you're starting off building your own AI agents, I would recommend starting off with Relevance AI. Now, I will admit I am a little bit biased because that's where I've started. It took me a lot of months to learn it. But it's in terms of how easy it is to navigate, it is a lot more user friendly. Whereas just based on my personal experience, when I signed up to N8N and I tried to figure it out, I got scared and I ran in the opposite direction. It just freaked me out. So not to say that I won't learn it because I will be learning it and I've started. But just to kind of, I guess Relevance AI is that first step, and then N8N might be that second step up once you've kind of nailed it. They are very different between each other. How they've set up is very different. So this is what I mean when building AI agents, and something that I will now get into is just setting some expectations here. The learning curve, I'm going to jump down to this one here. The learning curve is quite steep. You have to learn multiple things. Okay, so you're developing multiple skills at once. Now, the reason why I wanted to introduce you to automations is because within either platform you decide to use, you are going to learn automations. It's a skill that you have to learn. To get these agents up and running, the foundations of them are automations. They are those very linear, go to A to B automations that you're going to be equipping your agents with. when you're looking at a platform like Relevance AI, it is structured in almost like separate components. Your tools essentially are these automations that I keep referring to, right? A to B, the very linear. Um, and these tools act as the skills to your digital employees. So you're going to be equipping your agents with these tools so that it's able to perform the tasks you give it. So automations is one thing. You also need to have already a basic knowledge of prompt engineering. Yeah, you do, because these agents, especially if you're starting off with Relevance AI, each agent is programmed based off a prompt. And now there are different ways to prompt your agents, and it's very much an agent-based prompting technique. It's very much a chain of thought prompt, but again, you have to understand how it works for your agent to be able to, I guess, function properly, because you're going to be specifically mentioning things like what tools to use, how to use them, how to then delegate tasks to your sub agents. Um, so it really does, prompt engineering is really, really important to at least have the basic knowledge and understanding of how to construct a chain of thought prompt, for example. Okay, the learning curve is quite steep. Now, everyone each to their own with how they learn. I'm someone who um, can learn really quickly, but likes to learn the hard way by failing multiple times when I probably didn't need to go down that path, but I do. So it kind of all ties into the multiple skills. I mean, you're learning automations. If you're not coming from a non-technical background, you've got to learn that. Okay, then after that, you're learning how agents work, prompting, how to get your agents to actually follow instructions. Um, then you're actually looking at, well, how does an AI agent, how are they structured? What is, when you look at a human department, you're always going to have like a manager, then you're going to have employees under that manager, and colleagues, right? It's the same, it's a very, very similar thing here with your AI agents. You need to also learn how I guess that agent hierarchy works. And this is what I've mentioned here is before you actually go into building anything, you need to understand, okay, well, what is it you're automating? What process? Now you can go, some of these things can be quite complex, because AI agents are extremely autonomous in what they can get done. So just think of the first process. You got to plan it, you got to strategize it, then you got to plan your hierarchy. How many agents are you going to have? Then you look at, okay, well, what are the skills I want my agents to have? And these are going to be your tools. Then that's when you get into building. But even so, just to have that overall plan is fantastic and brilliant, just so you've got an idea of, okay, where one thing finishes, another thing ends, and then the results of that previous task, how is that then being taken to my next agent who then needs to perform their tasks? So it is a lot of planning. It is a lot of thinking about how it's all going to work before then you build. And it isn't a plug and play situation. Using templates is really quite difficult, especially if you don't understand the nuances between how they all are set up. I've seen people set them up and it works. But then if they want to customize it, that's when they're running into issues because they're making changes and then the tool's not working or the agent's not working and they're not quite understanding why. It's because they've made this little change and this change has actually just almost stuffed everything up because they don't understand how that one change has affected everything else. So it is really nuanced. I would highly suggest just going into one of either N8N or Relevance AI, just learn it and just learn one to begin with. Obviously, I'd recommend Relevance AI to begin with and then transition to N8N, but just really dedicate your time to learning one platform only, just so you're not getting overwhelmed. Because that did happen to me multiple times, more times than I can count. So, but I managed to crack it. It did take me ages, but I guess you guys are going in it with just hopefully set these expectations for you as well. Just expect that it will take a bit of time to learn and to actually then implement. And then obviously you've got the iteration phase and then the error handling as well, because sooner or later something is probably not going to work out, or your agent hasn't responded in a way that you want it to, and you've got to be able to debug that. Um, Okay. Thank you. And I hope this has kind of given you guys just a bit of a snapshot into what to expect when building your agents, just kind of how to equip you with a bit of knowledge before going into that as well. It's a fun process. It's a great process. I've learned a lot. But yeah, it can be challenging at the best of times, but it's worth it. It really is worth it, especially where technology is heading these days. So. Um, yeah, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Ash. Thank you for walking us through that because I think there's so much confusion in all of this, and so the fact that you're
Right.
able to, there was that moment where you presented that table, even halfway through, which was just the difference between an agent, a custom GPT, and just a plain old AI, plain old
Hmm.
chat, which is it's one of those things that when you're presented with it, you go, okay, I get it. But like, I think if you ask 9 people on the street, what's the difference? Then
Right.
the people wouldn't have had it presented to them that way. So thank you so much. That's endlessly appreciated.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
there's there's um there's some open questions from the community. So folks, if you've got a question that you like in the Q&A, give it a thumbs up, and we'll make sure to answer that. I've also got some questions that I'd love to to go. I'm just smiling at Victoria's chat comment here saying "mind blown," and we've got folks saying thank you so much as well. So I hope you can see that because there's a lot of gratitude coming your way right now, Ash. Um,
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
so first things first, I'd love to know because there was one of the comments in the chat here was like, what AI agents have you built? Because I think it would be interesting to unpack,
Yeah,
your thought process going into this and why you chose to do an AI agent rather than a custom GPT, etc., on this
yeah,
learning process that you've been through.
yeah. So let me start with content stuff. So I've actually currently built something for someone, which again is on the basis of repurposing content. So what I've built is something that is able to take very, very long video transcriptions and is able to really dissect that amount of content. What happens with LLMs and when you're going into ChatGPT or a custom GPT is that they kind of fizzle out. The more you give it, the response can sometimes by the end of it, and you can see the difference. And I
Mm.
tried it. I saw an insane difference between the top 6 paragraphs and the last 5 paragraphs, and the difference it got more vague. It wasn't able to just retain that context. So, what happens with the ability of an AI agent that I've built for that specific purpose is that it's able to split the text in a way that it's able to retain the context from the previous paragraphs, I would say, while then still maintaining that level of detail and the tone of voice and stuff like that. So, that is for an AI agent, it's just that next level, I guess, of customization and flexibility of what you can actually do with the content you're dealing with. Whereas a custom GPT, you don't have that ability to summarize a text, to do it in chunks, to do all sorts of this data handling, so that it maintains that context awareness. And then of course I've got it doing multiple things like generating graphics and all this other stuff as well. And that's actually been a lot of fun to build. Another one that I've done is for my sales process. So it is a lot of I've used a couple of integrations with external tools as well. So but essentially what it does is as soon as someone books a call with me, I've got an agent that will research that lead. It will go do Google research, you do LinkedIn research, it collects all of that information. and then have an agent who does some more data things. I can't remember now, but it does a whole bunch of other stuff, and it generates me a report
Nice.
as well based on that lead. So that I've used that for my own process because I noticed just how long it was taking me to research people, and that was starting to get annoying. So I was like, you know what, I'll just build an agent for that. So
Nice.
they're kind of the two main things. Yeah,
Love that. I love that so much. And I think an obvious follow-up question in those instances is why did you choose to do an AI agent rather than custom GPT? But the fact that you described it there as well is really, really helpful because I think you pointed to elements of knowing the technical limitations of the other platforms. So like, not being able to
yeah,
handle and like goodness, I've seen that too. Sometimes you catch out your AI platform. You said you didn't actually analyze that bit, did you? And so,
right.
I've experienced that, and so thank you for explaining that. I think knowing not only how you're using it, but also the thought process for deciding why is really really important. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
there was one more question that I had before we go into the community questions, which is what part of the AI agent hype are you just not having, or are you not buying into? Because it feels like there's a lot of chat
Mm,
about AI agents, and the interesting thing for me in watching your presentation today is not just the information, but also how there is a big learning curve. And I think folks at the moment are speaking about it as like the future and like how it's
yeah.
here and it's going to take. But actually, it seems like quite a technical product or a technical platform service. And so, for me, that's my observation is that some of the hype is perhaps a little bit unwarranted because the learning curve is going to take several years for folks rather than sort of immediately. But that's my layperson perspective. What's yours?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of people that will talk about agents and how good they are and how wonderful they are, and they do this and they do that. But when it actually comes to, yeah, to building them, like I said, just setting that it takes a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of time. And this is why when you go to someone who wants and you want them to build it for you, this is why they are charging a lot because the amount of time and effort it goes to actually building something is a lot. Um, and then people who might be talking about it are generally just talking about it, and that's what they're doing. They're not actually building it. So I guess they're just adding to the hype, but to really kind of cut through that noise and just set it straight, just don't expect it's going to be an easy breezy thing to do it because it's not. And then depending on how you learn as well, so yeah.
Love that. I love. It's been a while since I someone say easy breezy, but I missed that, and I am picking that up into my vernacular. So thank you very much.
No worries.
uh, let's head into the community questions. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to I was going to say I'm going to prompt it, which has a whole new context in this conversation.
Yeah.
But I'm going to mention this first question, but then I'm going to
Okay.
head into the second question. And the reason
Okay.
is that the first one asks for an example. And when people ask for examples, I don't know
Hmm.
about you, but my mind goes blank. So we're going to come back to this one in a second. So this is
Okay.
the first question that I'm just going to prompt, which is what's the best AI agent you've seen or built within the marketing sector? Who is nailing this so we can see what's possible and replicate? Um, so that's the question. So an example, we'll come back down to this in a moment.
Okay.
Um, let's go to the next one though, and we can have a chat about this for the moment. So the next one comes from Ray, and Ray says, "I'm so excited about this. Um, what should be my dream big goal be for B2B marketing agent usage?" So what's if someone's excited about this and they're starting to dream big, what would
Yeah.
be their what would you encourage them to do?
Um, I would take little steps, take
Mm-hmm.
baby steps when it comes to if something like this, an AI agent or whatever it might be that you want to, or AI in general, even just I think you gotta try to cut through and filter out all the noise. There are some wonderful people out there who really do provide a lot of value, and finding that and just sticking to it and learning as well, but without getting distracted with everything else that comes into marketing and AI and everything like that. So I think you really got to just pick a couple of things, whether they're tools, whether they're people. The same thing applies to people that you're following, and just stick to it. And try to filter out everything else. I think the one reason why I've done so well as I have is because I stuck to Relevance AI and I didn't go shopping around for anything else. I was like, you know what? I'm going to dedicate my time. I can see that this is going to be really steep to learn. And I did it. Yeah. So it's just having that focus, I think, is really important.
Nice. I love that. It's there's nothing quite like creativity within boundaries, and I think the same applies here, right? You know, if you've got that mastery of something, then you know you enable yourself to dream big, which I guess would
Yeah.
also hopefully make it more fun as well, frankly, because
Yeah.
you see progress rather than sort of feeling like you have to build the dream from day one.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
there's a question that's come in from Vimal, which is also echoed in the Q&A. So it's the same version of the question,
Hmm.
which is how do you make an AI agent reliable or make it actually do what it's supposed to do, which is one of the biggest concerns because I
Right.
guess you're sending this thing off to go and do things, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so how do you tend to build in these sort of checks and balances to make sure that it's not out there causing damage?
Yeah, right. So I think when you finish building, there is a phase where you're testing. And that can go for a while depending on the consistency of the output. So you need to ensure that before you're deploying these agents, you're testing it and you're testing it and you're testing it and you're refining it. So if the output isn't exactly what you want, or you don't want it to respond in a specific way, then it will mean then going back in and refining that process. And how you do that specifically within Relevance AI, a lot of it is to do with your prompting. Um, your agents are equipped with a very detailed prompt with how it's supposed to work, how it's supposed to instruct. If there's any kind of ambiguity around a specific thing that it's doing and you notice that it's doing it wrong, or it's not just quite nailing it, then perhaps you need to refine that prompt to make it clearer so that it becomes more reliable. And you've got two ways to be able to do this in Relevance AI. You've got the core, so I think it's custom GPTs. I get my terms mixed up. Custom GPTs or even GPT allows the core instructions, or it's custom instructions, I think they call it, where you're able to tell it what how you want it to respond, in what kind of way you want it to respond. It's similar with an AI agent, and that you do with a very long, large prompt, or you can also do it in their flow builder. And their flow builder just allows to add, I guess, another layer of reliability and
Mhm.
consistency as well with what your agent is doing. And the flow builder it's structured very differently, but it's taking it in chunks, right? So you've got the instructions, then you've got any conditions. If this, then do this instead. Um, but it just, yeah, it adds to it as well. So
Nice.
it
And like,
helps.
I, it reminds me of one of the points that you made in the presentation towards the end of it there, which is like having an awareness of what the hierarchy is going to be before you go and build it. And it
Yeah.
feels like that for someone like me who rightly or wrongly will go into these things and just start building probably a little bit mindlessly. That doesn't feel like that's the right approach here. I mean, how do you
Yeah.
actually manage that process of building that hierarchy and starting that process, because that thought process up front feels
Hmm.
really really important, but it's perhaps not a natural skill for some people.
Yeah, yeah, that was, if I'm honest, that was something that actually took me the longest to learn, was to actually have this, I guess, this higher level thought of thinking of how everything is structured. So Yeah, how I normally do it now is, well, I write. I actually
Mhm.
don't use any kind of app or anything like that. I write it down, and I'll draw diagrams in my journal that is just full of scribble and all sorts of stuff in it. So that's how I just so I can visually see at least mapping out what agent is going to be connecting to another agent and what have you. But I am also creating a an app that allows you to be able to program that visual hierarchy. So it's very much like a mind map. You're always going
Mhm.
to start with your top agent, and then it gives you the ability to be able to add all these other different agents with the specific things you need for an agent to work. So it's going to have the description, the inputs, and the outputs so that I can visually see it. Um, Relevance AI is also releasing a new feature that allows that as well. N8N has that visual thing where you can actually visually see it, which helps a lot. But I guess when it comes to planning, yeah, it's just you've always got to start with one point and then branch out as much as you can and get into as much detail as you can. Um, don't worry about the building. The building is a next thing. At least having a brief idea and overview of how it's going to be looking, how it's going to be structured helps. It definitely helps before building. Yeah.
Love that so much. Thank you. There are so many questions here, and I want to make sure that we prioritize the community ones. But so I'm going to get to those. I want to know about the limitations of AI agents, but we'll probably have to do this for another day. So uh, let's take one that's been echoed in a couple of questions in the Q&A. So we're making sure we're ticking those off. And so Trevor and Rona have both asked about how data gets passed between the different platforms. And so Rona has asked, is data protected, for example? Do we need to disclose that the information will be shared with third parties, etc.? Presumably, the answer is yes, but I'd love if there's any nuance here that you're aware of.
Um, so is this in terms of like how data is passed
Different
through
systems,
various
yeah, yeah, to one
yeah,
between the other.
yeah. So I guess with yeah, well, yes. But I'm not entirely well-rounded or quite sure of just how the data I mean how data is passed and how it's protected between passing of information and stuff like that. It is a bit of a gray area, I think, as well. But if you're using ChatGPT, then there's always a risk. There's always a risk for data and protection and what's being passed and who's taking what and all of that kind of stuff. So it is something to be aware of. It is something to be careful of. Um, I would always any kind of sensitive information, especially if you're building these agents for your clients and sensitive information is going into those AI agents, you do have the ability to anonymize. Is that how you say it?
Mhm.
Anonymize, where
Yep.
you, right, okay, that's it. Yeah. Certain information being passed from one app to another app, or, if you've got other external integrations with your agents and passing all of that kind of stuff as well. So, I don't know if that's really answered the question. It might have been a bit vague, but
I
yeah,
think it's one of those that I think a general takeaway is like be wary and be aware and build
yeah,
accordingly, which is a great takeaway and solid advice, Ash. Um,
yeah.
let's come back to the final. So this will be the final question, but it was also the first one I
Mhm.
prompted up front. So do you have any favorite examples in marketing of how folks are using AI agents
Yeah.
currently? Just so folks can here's some case studies, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess one of the biggest ones, which was actually quite fantastic, was one that I saw being built for, I think it was for an e-commerce. so an e-commerce client, and it was all to do with content and all of this kind of stuff. So they'd set up a very, very complex system. I think it was about 10 or 15 different agents. But essentially, what it allowed them to do was to take various pages from their products that they have listed on their website and generate descriptions and pages of content for that. So products descriptions and stuff like that and what have you. That was all SEO optimized. It had links to databases where all of the information of those products were kept. I don't think it was just content. I think it was doing a whole bunch of different things as well. But like I said, it was about a 15 agent setup. So it was quite complex, and did involve a lot of different external integrations as well with it. So it did a whole bunch of research as well, competitor analysis. It was generating reports as well based on that competitor analysis, as well as doing the content side for their individual products. And then it would give suggestions of internal links. So it would link to other products,
Nice.
um, which was quite something. And I've then seen other people build about, upwards of 20 agents, Don't ask me the ins and outs of that one because I've totally forgotten how it all works, but it was 20 agents. It was quite large. I think the main things as well is people are doing a lot of stuff with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a big platform. It seems like in this day and age to be on as a business owner. Um, and I think someone has also set up a way to do the whole outreach system on LinkedIn. So that means collecting people, researching them, doing all sorts of stuff on profiling, analyzing, and then it will actually reach out to them via LinkedIn or email. And
Right.
then having agents that then do the back and forth exchange via email as well as through LinkedIn, which is quite something. So
Mm.
that's just another little thing there as well. I say little, but it's not little.
But they can be profound, can't they? They really can be profound for business. Um,
Yeah,
with all that said, Ash, you've nailed it. So thank you so much. I mean, I hope
thank you.
in the side of your eyes, you've been speaking just now. You've also been able to see so many people saying thank you as well for sharing your knowledge today. So like it's endlessly appreciated, and I think in this like I was going to say in this rapidly changing world, which makes me sound like an AI.
An AI, right?
But
There's something to say about that. It seems like some of the language that AI is saying, we're now replicating that with our own language and how we speak. So it can get
well,
very philosophical very quickly, just say.
let's not do that.
Let's not. That's a rabbit hole for another day.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But thank you so much for taking us through that today, for introducing so many of us to AI agents, and I hope. Oh, well, I've seen already in the chat feature that you've really cleared a lot up for a lot of folks. So that is endlessly
Awesome.
appreciated. And thank you to everyone for your fabulous questions as well today. I really hope it's helped you. You are the absolute best every week. So,
Awesome.
with all that said, we'll see you all hopefully next week. But in the meantime, a big thank you, Ash. A big thank you to all of our
Thank you.
sponsors. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Cheers, Ash.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Bye.